So folks, welcome back. How's everyone doing? It's the last day. Ooh. I know. But at some point you do have to go home and make some money. So what Joe and I wanted to do today is, you got these white folders lying on your desks, or on your tables. We printed out one copy of the manual you'll be getting each per table. Partly to save trees and partly because we'll be sending you the PDF anyway, so this is a little bit hard to look back on the airport, on the airplane. So what I wanted to do is just go through it so you see what is inside there, and importantly, how it relates to the whole business that you'll be building. Make sense to everyone? So the first thing I want to invite you guys to do is to look at the very front of the manual, and feel free to kind of bunch together, guys, so you can actually see what's inside there. Okay, so what's the first stage of Johnny's journey? Anyone? Build a hut, which represents what? So if you look at resources 1.2, that's your office administration. That's the stuff about building your office, where to find it, basic accounting, client history. Client history is basically your intake form, so you can sign people in. I'll give you a sample one of that. You can adapt it any way you wish to, of course. Questions you're going to need to ask your lawyers and tax advisors to kind of test them out a little bit. The client information release, all the medical referral forms, they're going to be a very important part of the business. This is something that really stumped me when I first started, because I knew I should get medical referrals from doctors to say I'm allowed to work with certain issues, as you guys all should have been trained to do already, right? And if you haven't, get more training, because there are certain issues like pain you do not work with until you get a doctor's referral. But I had no idea what one of these things looks like. So we've created 3 different versions. One is the client consenting for you to actually talk to their doctor, and you can send the doctor a copy of this thing so that they know, oh, this person said yes. And the reason for that is important, by the way, is because the clients will probably forget to contact their doctor if you ask them to, right? If they're pretty organized, we've got a medical referral form where the client can contact the doctor and say, please send my hypnotist this stuff, because that way he can work with me. And the more practical one is they'll sign a release. You send a copy of the release together with a medical referral request to the doctor, and they basically have their secretary just type out what's in there and fill in the blanks with some case history stuff for the client. It's a very straightforward process. It basically makes it easy for the doctor to say yes. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah?
This will totally get you past the gatekeepers.
Yeah. So as soon as it says medical referral, they go, oh, doctor must look at this.
Yeah.
It's an automatic. Isn't that true? You guys are doctors, right? They wouldn't dare reject a letter that says medical referral in it, right? So it's one of those little insider secrets.
It's happening to me too today.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all getting a little space happy, aren't we? Like, I think they've turned the oxygen down in the room. Soon we'll be all like in a carbon dioxide overload, like, I'm happy, but I'm really sleepy. I don't know why. Okay, so the rest of that stuff in here is actually pretty straightforward. You have things like office contents checklist is the stuff that Joe has in his office. It's a much more elaborate setup than I had. I had 2 chairs and me, hopefully a patient every now and again. Office photos, again, Joe very, very kindly went through and photographed his office and some other places as well. We should have them in, where are they here? Here we go. We should have them back here somewhere. There we go. So they'll be in here. You have all kinds of photographs of how the offices can look out and layout and so on. And really, this is not so much that you have to copy it. It's just to give you a starting point on how you want to design yourself. Yeah. Some of you will look at these photographs and say, yeah, I don't like that. Doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for the people I want to have here. Great. Well, if you know what doesn't work, you'll have some instincts about what does, right?
And if you don't like my office, you're probably not my client. So
right.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
He's not exactly sweating over this one, is he? So you get the idea of step 1, the hut, right? And please, have a little leaf through the resources. If you go into the black tab, you have to skip past the first section, which is market research, go into the resource 1.2. And you'll actually see the stuff we've created for you guys. There's all kinds of stuff you can have in here. One of the things which I want to just pull out here a little bit, in your office checklist, the first plug tab right in the front, right? That's it. And then just pull it through. And it'll say resources 1.1 at the front, and then you just keep going until you get resources 1.2. All right, let's try this again. You may have different color. Yeah, you know what? You guys have different color tabs. Megan, come on. Sorry, don't worry. We have color confusion.
Don't blame Megan. Don't blame Megan.
All right, let's do it this way. You have the index, correct?
Backwards, yeah.
You have the first tab. I think you can ignore that one. Go to the second tab, and it should say Resources 1.1. Is that right? Yes. All right. Skip past Resources 1.1. You'll get to Resources 1.2. Office Admin. It's in the same page, in the same thing. You just have to leaf through it. That's all.
There you go.
You'll get rid of a section roughly this big. Oh, page number. Of course. This would be so much easier. Page 24, folks.
No, I like yours before. 1/8 of an inch thick. There you go.
Yeah. When we put these resources together, you see they're all kind of all over the place. So I forgot we got organized. You're welcome.
Yeah, all these things are all over my hard drive.
Meticulously prepared, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's why you need a Megan.
Page 24 is where it starts, and page 25 you get the whole accounting process, right? It's a very simple process. By the time you get into a healthy 5-figure income, you must update this system. If you're going to use this, it's great to start with. It is nowhere near good enough if you start getting to the healthy 5-figure income area, right? You'll be able to talk to your CPA. They'll sort you out. They'll probably have some software to recommend. Yeah. But this is just to get you started, right?
I recommend QuickBooks, but yeah, it's something I use, and it's pretty much industry standard for just about every business. And
low learning curve, but it's worth it.
A slight learning curve, but again, you'll be making enough money at that point to really, when you need it, to be able to hire somebody to set that up for you for like maybe $100 or something like that and teach you how to use it.
Right. So then we have the client history on page 28, 29. That's basically how, it's pretty much the form I handed out to my clients to sign before they started a session, very straightforward. Page 30 is the tax lawyers' questions and so on. Then we have all the medical research we talked about. What I'd like to talk a little bit about now is page 34, which is the office checklist. Now this is going to be very important. Joe has really gone through a lot of trouble to this, not just taking the photographs of his office, which look kind of nice, right? Or giving you the content of his office. What's important is from page 40 onwards. Those few pages are going to be of great value to you guys, because basically he's given you the rundown of how to negotiate different deals, right? How to give guarantees to your clients without actually giving money guarantees, so you can have the benefit of it without the drawback, and how to negotiate a little bit about how to get better deals with the actual offices that you want to rent.
Yeah.
Just a little bit about
that. I mean, there's like 40 or 50 bullet points that I will go
ton
through
of stuff there.
With an office, and this could be, even if you're dealing with like you're subletting an office from a chiropractor or something, you should be thinking about these types of things. And again, the laws and regulations and stuff are going to be different wherever you are, and depending on, if you're going with, especially a lot of those are for the big sort of corporate offices, they will have more of these terms in their contracts. Take a look at them and understand what the contract that you're signing actually means. A office lease is much more onerous and serious than just like a regular rental lease, a residential one. So I highly recommend, if you want to speak to me, I can tell you Legal Shield is actually fantastic with that type of stuff. They'll give you all the guidance you need. They'll actually look at the contract and help you change it if needed. And if not, these are really good things that I've learned to go over. Some of my family's in commercial real estate, and that's what they sent me. They said, take a look at these are going to be the most important things that you guys are going to need to learn how to negotiate and know. The rule of negotiation, don't ever negotiate piecemeal. Don't ever negotiate line by line. This is something that more experienced business people will know sort of intuitively, but if you figure out on there what the most important things to you are, and you guard those, with your life, and then the rest of the stuff, you can give away, a lot of the, give on a lot of the other things that you really don't care about in order to get the things that you do. And you say, well, I'll give you these 5 points if I get to keep all these things that I want. And the rule there is if you're going to negotiate line by line, you're going to compromise on every single line rather than getting a huge chunk of what you want, getting rid of stuff you don't even care about, and then possibly negotiating on some of the middle of the rest.
So some useful stuff there, folks? Yeah? All right, so then we'll go forward to page 6, because where does Johnny go after the hut? The marshes. What do the marshes represent? So resources 1.1, all those resources from page 6 on to about 24, is your market research stuff. So your demographic stuff, that's examples of the kind of stuff you can look for in Wolfram Alpha, kind of ways of looking through that, all the Facebook and fan pages and stuff, the local competition. Really, everything we went through on the first day is all in here again.
And remember that these aren't the only resources you should be checking out. They are a starting point.
Exactly. They're the place you go to if you can't think of anything to do in particular. It's better than sitting around, clicking your fingers and going, what do I do now? Right? By the way, a little reminder. What is the number one, hands down, best source of market research anywhere in the world ever? Talk to the actual people who are your ideal customers. Talk to them, right? If you can get in front of them and talk to them, if you can get them on the phone and talk to them, hands down, that is going to be your best source of market research.
And remember those 4 questions of, how can I double your business? How can I help you? What do you really like? Who do you really like to see? Who do you really hate to see? Things like that. What are you looking for this year? What have you tried? What haven't you tried? Questions like that. People will answer you. They love to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
This is stuff that people talk about at parties and things anyway. They will tell you.
There's actually a great example of this. Back in the 80s, they sent out some psychologists, but basically doing a lot of like psychological research to see there's some trends in populations. They sent out a questionnaire, pretty much the size of this manual, actually, with like hundreds of questions. And they sent them out to, I think, something like 4,000 households. With like self-addressed envelopes for them to send it back again. Now they expected to get back maybe 100 of these things because it's a lot of effort to go through. But all the questions were so personal, like, do you prefer the ice cream or chocolate? Do you, like some random question like that, and some really personal questions like, how often do you get depressed in the day, in a week or something like that. People loved answering these questions. They sat there, filled all these things out, sent it back with a note saying, do you have another one, please?
By the way, that's another fascinating fact for you guys to be able to send out to your list.
Right.
Find that actual story, the report, and tell people about it.
It's great. So on page 16, we have something called the unique selling point chart. Well, it's a simple tool. You don't even have to use this chart. This just shows you what kind of I do. I actually would do it. In fact, this is Cliff's idea, and he shared that with us. You can just draw it up on a simple piece of paper, draw a little matrix up, and put these things in there. It's a very simple way of evaluating or getting a big picture overview of what's available and what's positive, right? The market size, cost of entry, all that sort of stuff, those are ways you have to evaluate your potential niches or niches. And basically, the better it looks, the higher the number. The worse it looks, the lower the number. So for example, if the cost of entry is high, it costs you a lot of money to get into the game, it'll be a low number because it's bad, right? If it's easy to get in, doesn't cost very much, a few pennies, then it's good, therefore it'll be a high number. Do you see how that works? So it's not really a difficult value assignment to make. What it'll do though is at the end, if you add up all the numbers, it gives you a nice little trend of, oh, this is interesting, this one here has quite a bit of stuff going for it. The last one, which is the personal vision in that list, is going to be probably the most important one, because sure, you can follow the money, you can follow the market size, you can follow all these different things, and they're important, right? If there's no market, then there's no business, really. But ultimately, you're the one who's got to go sweating through the whole thing. You're the one who's got to be wading through the mud to find the gold. That means you need some real personal motivation. And if your personal vision is a 0, that is not something to be in business in, no matter how much money there is there. Does it make sense to everyone?
Right.
So it's a simple little tool to keep yourself, to keep an overview before you go down the niche. Right. It doesn't mean you choose by the numbers, by the way. This is not choosing by numbers.
That was my point.
All right, go ahead, please, sorry.
Yeah, don't choose by the numbers. Don't let the numbers, the data, hide the qualitative information that you're actually getting, right? The feeling of, if you're really passionate about something and, on the formula it looks really hard to get into that market, it still might be the right market for you. like pursuing a medical degree in the U.S., you know, that can take years and years, and even getting down to a really specific specialty can take many more years after medical school. But if that's your passion, I would seriously consider, you know, if it was my passion, I would seriously consider following it. And it's really up to you. Don't let the formula outweigh what you're truly feeling.
Right. Because sometimes what will happen is you might get something which has got a high number and you think you should be doing it. When you look at it, your gut says, nah.
You just hate it.
I hate it. Then don't do it. Other times, something looks a little bit low, but you think, you know what? I don't care. I really want to make a go of this. Of course, the risk you take is bigger because the potential income may be lower, but even, at least then, you still have the right juice to keep you going. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah? Page 18 and 19 is going to be interesting. This is something which is, this is the left brain version of the empathy map. These are some things you can, or rather, these are some things you do once you've done the empathy map to condense it down to simple statements you can present to people, like, you know, those elevator pitches and so on. Not that I believe in it particularly well, but it's very useful for you to be able to have a slogan or a summary of who you are, who you serve, and what you do, that people can instantly understand and be excited by. And this is a little checklist you can go through that will help you identify whether or not you've formulated it in a way that's going to be exciting to people. Make sense to you guys?
My one rule for a USP is you should be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Don't go past the USP to where you speak in corporate language again. Remember, we want to be personal with this stuff. People should be excited about this. It shouldn't be that, you know, Office Space is one of my favorite movies. The big corporate logos that he tears down and is like, those motivational posters. If your stuff is starting to sound like that, people will hate it. They'll be like, what does that even mean?
They can't connect to that sort of stuff, right?
If it stops losing meaning to you, if you stop feeling it inside, then you might have to take a step back and really reevaluate and make it more personal to you and to your potential clients.
All cool? Then we have got, of course, the client empathy map, and the reason it's in your resource as a PDF is because you can then print off as many of these babies as you want. And I fully expect that when you're doing your market research, you'll be printing off at least 6 or 7 of these, so you can create different client profiles depending on the niches. And then that's another way, by the way, to add to your checklist in terms of what you're evaluating. You might really like one client, right? You might go, oh, I really like him. I want to work with him.
I actually have, I think I have like 6 of those, and I actually put a real picture of a person in the middle. And in my other office, my office where I actually do the admin work and everything else, my office that you see pictures of is where I do client work. But my other office, I have them pasted on the wall, and I look at them all the time, and I'm constantly updating them, which I think is important.
Yeah.
I'm always going back to the marshes, always. And I get new insights all the time especially from clients. But for me at least, my sort of secret tip there is to actually put a real picture of a person there, because you'll have that person in mind, and it just creates a deeper connection with them. And it just comes from my days as a software consultant. We used to do a similar tool where we were talking about our users, and having a real picture of an actual person that really uses the software or really uses your services, to me, lets you connect with them better, and lets you, when I'm writing copy, I'll literally hold their picture in front of my face and talk to them like they were right there.
It's a nice little tip. The other thing also is, this is not just to be empathetic with your ideal client. Do one of these for your worst client, the most nightmarish client ever.
Yeah.
And I'm serious, because otherwise you'll be tempted to say yes to them, and when you go, oh, hang on a second, what's he talking about? That reminds me of someone. Oh, there's Fred. Oh, I wish Fred were dead. Right?
Yeah.
I best not work with this one, right?
The thinking and feeling one on that one will be a little bit, probably, you won't be able to figure out. There'll be a lot of
you don't want to paste this one on your wall,
let's
put it this way, right? This is something that you have to keep in your drawer for, just so you have the warning signs, Let's put it this way. In our younger days, all of us had some crazy dates, and you went, never again, right? And as soon as you met someone who had those crazy characteristics, you went, okay, that reminds me of someone, and I do not want to be going back there again, right? Isn't that how life works? Yeah, sure. So having your nightmare client profile can be quite useful too, so that you can, it actually helps alleviate a lot of anxieties. Like when you're writing you're niching down, and you're losing people, just remember, a lot of the people you're losing will be people you hate anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
And it helps you say no to a lot of stuff that you're going to waste your time on.
Yes.
And it also helps you, if you're interested, to refer to other people for whom your worst client will be their best.
Best client.
And I highly recommend that. Become friends with the other therapists, hypnotherapists, doctors, chiropractors, everyone else in your area. You're going to want to do that anyway because they'll help refer you clients. But refer to them. Give them all the stuff that you don't want, because I guarantee, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right?
Yep.
So you're going to hate one, but they're going to love that type of person.
And just to follow up on something you said there, the Pareto law works in all kinds of different ways. The Pareto principle is the 80-20 rule. 20% of your clients will suck up 80% of your time.
They will.
And give you 80% of your heartache, right?
Yeah.
So if you make a nice little empathy map of the people who are that 20%, when you recognize them, you realize, hey, I now have 4 extra days to do stuff in, right?
Yeah.
So, and then of course, 80% of your clients will only suck up 20% of your time and give you 20% of the hassle. Those are the ones you want to serve because you have much more time now to grow as a business. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah. Okay? So, and this is true in hypnotherapy just to be more effective, but it's also true in business to be more effective. Learn to fire your clients. You don't fire all your clients because they didn't have no clients, but if you know what you're looking for, you know which ones will waste your time, will prevent you from growing as a business, and prevent you from serving the audience that is really your calling, right? So you need to basically be more efficient and effective with your time, and that's one way to do it. Make sense, everyone? Quickly?
Do you actually find, Joe, that
Yeah.
You get a different client at $500 a session for stop smoking,
So that's
and
a-
$100?
So that's a great point. The question was, do you find that you get a different client at $500 for a stop smoking session versus $100 for the stop smoking session?
Challenge in one word.
Yes. They are
100%.
better.
100%.
Yeah. They're less price sensitive because they are able to afford more. They are more willing to change, and they're often, to varying degrees, usually just better all around people, in my experience.
It doesn't mean you don't serve people who've got
Yeah.
lower incomes,
Yeah.
none the least. But it means that you tend to have less hassle and less issues with a higher income bracket. It's almost as though it filters for people, and only if they're really serious will they come. So you have a higher quality of person. Because I've had people when I used to run stop smoking at similar prices, for whom that kind of money was a lot, but by the time they came, because they were so serious about it, because it was a big deal for them, they were a real pleasure to work with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, completely.
good question.
And I've even done, pro bono clients that can't afford it, and those people usually are extremely appreciative, and they will be just as good as a $500 client, no problem.
But you have to screen. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
screen
people
them.
who want pro bono, who want to have a freebie, who actually could afford a session, but their mindset is all lack and scarcity and so on, and so they think they can't afford it, but they really can, and those are nightmare clients. Oh, they're probably the worst because there's so much other stuff to fix. You want to set a nice, clear framework ahead of time, and it's not that those people can't be worked with, by the way.
Guess
It's
what?
just-
That could be your ideal client.
Yeah.
Right? Someone who's got that lack mindset. You could spend, we talked about how to expand one problem into fixing their life. You could, that could be your ideal client. That could be your
Right.
way in.
You just have to set your
help them.
frames up front properly so that it's easier to work with those people. But that's more your skill as a hypnotherapist rather than as a business person, so we can kind of skip across that a little bit now. Right? All right, so what happens? Actually, we'll go from there. So Johnny's gone to the marshes. He's now been in the village, so he's done his USP and all that, the profile map and so on. Now we're into the business of kind of marketing and so on. And this is a little bit outside of the context. It's more principle-based, so it'll fit generally in the map. It's if you were going to color in your map with pencil and crayons and stuff, which, by the way, I recommend. It'll be kind of useful thing to do. That's what the next sort of section is. That's starting at page 45, resources 1.3. This is basically your whole marketing resources stuff that we talked about again on the first day. So I want to run you through very quickly some of the ideas we have here. On page 45, you have a whole bunch of areas of businesses, venues, social clubs, and so on, which you can just go through and go, you know what, these people might fit my particular client. I might find the people I'm looking for here. This is not an exclusive list. This is just a starter list, right? And hopefully as you look at the list, you know, you have Boy Scouts of America, you have spas and salon, senior centers. You should see there's a very varied range of places where people collect.
Yep.
And anywhere where people gather, the people you're interested in might be gathering. It's just a question of matching your map with those venues.
It's the one rule.
Okay. Next, we have a guest list. These are so easy. Lines, name, email, right? But
that's all I really care about.
We included it primarily because it's a reminder for you guys. If you do not have this little piece of paper in the back of your room when you do your lecture demo, you've probably just wasted your time, right? A lot of people think this is an amazing guy and they might remember you for the rest of their life.
Oh, they won't.
Well, they might tell someone about it at some point.
They won't.
But they'll never come to you. They will never call you. They will just not be a client. So you need the details because without a list, you have no business. Remember that? No list, no business. That's right. Resource 1.4. This is again one little cog on your map here. It's all about the systems that you can put in place in order to build an effective business. So we've got Odesk, which is one of the places in which you can hire professionals, IT professionals, personal assistants. My current personal assistant, we just hired an Odesk literally 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago. And right now I'm just training her to be an effective personal assistant. So that was an Odesk, and you'll find all the details about there.
And my personal assistant trainer just got back to me, so I'll have to send you their information.
It makes my life a lot easier.
Well, yeah, actually, you know what? I'll ask her if I can add her name to the resources. She's pretty busy, so.
Google Voice, that's it's a great little app, which online app which allows you to talk to people. So if you decide you don't want to do face-to-face or one-to-ones, you can do one-to-ones virtually via phone calls or Skype or Google Voice as well. And for those of you who are very mobile, this is a great tool. I actually went down this road for a while, and it's great because you could be somewhere like, I don't know, the Bahamas, spend a couple of hours in your hotel room chatting to people, and then, oh, you know, I've got a very important meeting. I'm going to go now. And out there's the pool and the lounge.
You can see it out there.
Right? So you've got all kinds of iPhone applications that you can work with in terms of like Skype for the iPhone, so you can actually use your Wi-Fi, so it's a lot cheaper to make phone calls. Magic Jack, I think all of you guys know about that already. Skype is already in there. Now on page 54, this is going to be interesting for you guys. What we've done here is we've had a professional copywriter, someone who charges many thousands of dollars to write a letter like this, and he charged us many thousands of dollars to write this particular letter. And what this is an example of what a professionally written sales letter for a particular niche within weight loss looks like. And I believe this is for mothers who have failed at losing weight. In other words, as the ladies amongst us know, when you're pregnant, you put on some weight, and when you give birth, it doesn't all go away again, right? It doesn't all go into the child. So, which is a little unfair, really, isn't it? So, a little social commentary there. So, it's a nice little niche. If your area is full of, young mothers, there may be a whole bunch of people looking for this sort of thing. And this is not because you'll have to go into that niche. This is to demonstrate how, what Joe was talking about, the niche within a niche, right? That's where you want to start. And this will show you how really what he's writing here is a slightly more polished version of the letter to a friend that we talked about the other day. Remember that, guys? Right? So this is a nice little resource for you to go through. I do not recommend you use it word for word, partly because if you're seeing smokers and they see this, they'll go, huh? Right? So it's more for your resource to kind of study and see what a professionally written sales letter that would cost you several $1,000s would look like. Make sense to everyone? Right after that, on page 63, we have, again, by the same copywriter, what's called a squeeze page. A squeeze page is basically a simple page saying, here's put your email in here for your free report and whatever it is. But because we're asking them to do something, you still need to have a little bit of exciting copy, some words to motivate them to put their details in the first place. If you turn up and it's just a blank page with an email thing, very few people will put the details in, right? If it's a blank page that says, put your email in here, actually surprisingly more people will put their email in. It's actually quite a good thing. But then the more stuff you put in there to motivate them so the more likely it's going to capture that email. This is, again, for the same niche within a niche. This is a squeeze page designed for that, to show you how your sales letter and your squeeze page relate to each other, right?
And a good squeeze page on the internet can collect up to about in the high 90% percentages of people who actually come. So it's well worth your time to have a well-written squeeze page, because you want those people on your list. So just something to think about.
So then the next few pages, from 65 onwards, we have a whole bunch of websites we've created for you. Each website has...
Throw those up here?
Sure, throw them up there. The websites, the images will change slightly because we've got to buy images for you. We've got to pay royalty-free, a stock photo company to put certain images in there. And by the time we printed the manual, this particular version of the manual came out, we hadn't negotiated the rates for that yet. But we will have slightly different images in here, and they will have the royalties paid, so you can use them straight out of the box. I strongly recommend that the ones that say about me, you do not put someone else's photograph in that, right? Put your own face in that, because if they turn up and they suddenly see, a big hairy man when they saw a little delicate woman, it's like, huh? But I think that makes
Unless
sense,
you are
right?
that guy, yeah.
Exactly.
That guy.
So each website is very simple. It's got 5 tabs. It's the main page. The main page is where you have your sales page. Can you have a little, is that the sales page there? If you just click towards the sales page, do you have one there?
And I don't think I have a sales page one.
Okay, that's the squeeze.
That's
you
a
see
free
this?
download
Let's talk
one.
about this. This is a squeeze page. You see how there's a little space for a video? If you have a little 5-minute or 2-minute video message saying, "Hi, welcome to my page. I'm really excited to share this free report with you guys." As soon as you put your details right here below, you can do the whole pointing thing because you know it's going to go there. Then I'll be able to email you this report straight away, and you'll be able to hear the facts of 1, 2, 3. It's basically a mini lecture demo, isn't it? Right, which you already know how to do. Or you just go for the text version, which you have an example of as well. So that's what a squeeze page can look like. The main page is basically where you have your main sales letter, and importantly, whilst I'll have a little email capture in the top corner, in case people aren't ready to buy yet, the bottom must have a buy now button, right? Book your session now, pay your deposit now, and then use PayPal or any kind of other payment portal to check out. There's lots of different payment portals you can use. I'll come to in a second. It must have that button on there, otherwise the whole website has wasted its time. Does it make sense, everyone? Is it emphasize this point? I cannot tell you how many hypnotherapy sites. Go to it, by the way. You will go. I challenge you to find 100 hypnotherapy sites that are actually doing hypnotherapy one-to-one. I challenge you to find, within those 100, more than one that actually has a buy now button on there.
Including my own this week. I actually have my virtual assistant converting pretty much every single one of my web pages to these formats because they work.
They do. They do. Quick thing.
Presumably you also make sure you miss out the typos at that one as well.
So he's saying presumably we missed out the typos. Of course, these are just we threw them up together quickly for this seminar. They're for you to see what they look like. They're not designed for you to just plug and play. The actual websites themselves that we've created, by the way, are plug and play. You'll be able to take them straight into WordPress, and they'll instantly sync in with it. Your programmer, your IT guy, whatever you get, an Odesk or Guru, should be able to do that job within 20 minutes. It's a real no-brainer, provided you have a URL and a database behind that. They'll be able to plug it all together. What you then must do is go in and change all the words. The words are there to show you where the headlines will be, where the main text will be, where testimonial might be. But you must change the message and the testimonials and everything else to fit you. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. So yes, absolutely. You want to make sure that your website's nice and professional and clean and so on. And we've got 3 different templates there for you so that you can choose a different look, a different feel, whatever you find interesting, okay? So you understand the main page, which is the sales page. You understand the squeeze page, which is the email capture page, yes? The next pages are easy. There's a hypnosis Q&A page. That's really where you talk about the myths of hypnosis. It's another version of the relationship road, but as a soft version because you do not yet have any details from them, right? It basically gets them to think, you know what? This person seems to know enough about hypnosis that I might put my email into their squeeze page now, right? The About Me section is basically where you get to talk about yourself a little bit. Again, as Joe was saying, do not go down the road of corporate speak. Here at the Hypnosis Center, we cherish the sacred relationship between therapist and client, right?
Yeah, you might not even want to do third person. Just do first person. Say,
I would
I am
recommend-
this. I do this. Not, Joe Holmes does this. It's
Even if I had 100 hypnotherapists that I'm employing, I'd say, hello, welcome to my website. It's a real pleasure to welcome you here. Make it personal. You're a real person. And exhibit some of your character there, right?
yeah.
Contact me. It's very simple. I cannot tell you how frustrating some websites are because you want to give them money and they have no way of you talking to them to show them how much money you want to give them, right? Or other things people might do is, they don't know where your office is, so they don't even know if they can come to you. Because if you're something like LA, which is very spread out, right? They might be at one end of LA, and you might be at the other end of LA, and they're thinking, can I even make it over there? If they can't find out where you are, it's going to put them off, guaranteed, 100%. So make sure you have a clear, simple contact list, which is contact details, which is, your address, your phone number, your email, or if you want to have your email capture form, again, usually you have these things where you put your email in, your name in, and a little box where you can type in your question. That can be quite nice. If you get that email, though, that is not an email that goes onto your autoresponder because they haven't given you permission to contact them for anything other than whatever question they've asked you about. Do you understand the nature of the relationship there? I presume you have no difference there.
Yep.
Very good. So you get the idea of the website. Again, prepared for you at great expense because we like you. So that's basically the first day covered. Easy? Moving on to the next tab, resources 2.1. This is really the stuff we covered on the second day. What does Johnny do once he gets past the village? Everyone? He goes to the farmer's market, right? So in the farmer's market, he needs to do a whole bunch of things, right? He needs to open the farmer's market, he needs to do a lecture demo, and so on, right? So the first tab here on the resources talks about your personal network referrals. Do you want to have a little chat about that?
Yeah, this isn't something we got to in too much detail, but you guys will be pretty familiar with it. This is, in your life, you'll have plenty of friends and family that probably will be very willing to help you. And I've set up, I've given you 2 sample emails here with a bunch of commentary sort of in the middle that you can look at, and it'll be an email that you can personalize first, but send out to people that you already know, that you can say, hey, I'm a hypnotherapist. I wanted to see what I can do for you. And it's really putting value out there. And it's the start of a whole chain of rebuilding a relationship based around you being a hypnotherapist or a coach, and setting up like an informational interview or setting up a possible recommendation for someone else to recommend you to people that they might know that would use your services, and just gives you a simple, easy way to start that conversation out. I can't tell you where that conversation is going to lead, so that's where the resource has to stop. But it'll give you I just wrote out a couple of simple emails that I actually use. They're my personal templates that I just wrote an example in there and said, put this type of information here, put this type of information here, make personal connections here, and sort of all the psychological tools built in that will get people to respond to you and want to help you. And these are only for your personal network. This is the people that you actually know.
Yes, you know.
Not just random people, so don't spam them. And make it very personal as well.
Yes.
But it's a very easy resource to use. You can just basically copy and paste and change a few sentences around to fit your personal situation, and it'll get the ball rolling.
Also on page 82, you have a reminder of the how you have that personal conversation with your potential referral partners. The questions we've been putting up on the board, like what excites you most about your clients, what frustrates you most about your clients, and so on. Yep. Those are here again. So this will be a very nice, this will be a page you'll probably want to put either print out and put on your wall, or put if you print the whole manual out, you can put a little sticky next to it, because this is the conversation that you'll be having the most with the people that you meet once you get into a relationship with them, because this is where you find your princes. Out of this, a prince may be born. And that makes you a king or a queen. Depending, and I'm not going to make that a gender distinction on that one. So resources 2.2, that's the lecture demo. So we have in here basically the lecture demo outline. I've really gone to town on this one where we give you the main objectives like we talked about. I've also broken down 3 sample lecture demos for you so you have an idea of how to structure them according to time. What if you only have an hour? What if you have 2 hours? What if you have 3 hours? And then the way you break up your timings, how much time you fill with this, how much time you fill with the off, how much time you have in a break, and so on. I've broken out the timings, how I would run it. Doesn't mean you have to run it this way, but it gives you a starting point, because now if you get a 1 hour lunch and learn or lecture demo to do, you'll go, great, I know exactly how I can start. And then once you get into the process of it, you can kind of tweak it around a bit as experience teaches you how you like to do things. Make sense? After that, we have the outline of the entire 5 phases of the lecture demo process that we've already covered. You've done all this stuff. This is more for your conscious mind to kind of remember all the little details you can put within it. You do not have to do every little detail that's in there. They just give you suggestions of the kinds of stuff you can include in there. And some of the things you'll want to do, some of the things you won't want to do, some of the things are already in your experience, some of those things you may have to go out and learn skills to be able to plug in there to improve with it. Make sense? But it's basically there for you as a resource. Then we move on to resource 2.3, which is all about referrals. And this is really where all the stuff that Joe was talking about, in fact, you may want to run through them with him on this, with the pyramid, you know, the classic sales pyramid and the reverse pyramid and all that sort of stuff. Remember those 5 circles of trust, education, need, solution, and so on? All that's kind of positioned here again, so you can go through that. And then all the information we talked about in terms of how to find a referral partner, how to talk to your referral partner, how to cultivate the relationship, and so on. Is there anything else you want to say about that sort of section?
Oh, and my special tool of being able to find information that's going to really entice referral partners and show them that you know all their stuff. Remember Google Reader, of putting in information about other people's interests and having folders with their interests and blogs and news
page
articles
95 or to 97 currently. There may be some slight page number changes when we do the final version.
It's like a secret weapon. People will think you're a genius in whatever they're interested in, and you will have a huge connection with them.
Right.
And obviously you can't do this for everyone, but as a consequence of knowing a lot of things for your referral partners, you'll just know a lot more and be able to be more interesting to potential new sort of referral partners and customers and everything else. You just be able to talk intelligently about topics that you might not have been interested in before, but you can have at least a few stories to kind of connect with people. So
Right.
It's just like a secret weapon for me.
And it's the whole step-by-step thing he put on the board before, on the screen before, on how he actually goes through to use Google Reader. So that's a very useful resource there. Moving on to page 100 onwards, that's the final part of the resources in this section. That's the whole phone call process, which is, of course, the town crier in terms of the gameplay and the map, right? Now, you notice how the town crier, when he comes in, he increases your conversion rate by 5%, right? That's quite a lot, isn't it? Where you would have got $3 before, you now get $4. That's how powerful your phone process is. If you have a bad phone process, you will be leaking clients like a ship that even rats don't want to be on, right? It's true. So I won't go. Go on.
Are there babies on that ship?
Baby rats.
Baby rats, okay.
So I won't go through that because it's really pretty much what we've already covered, and you can go through it in more detail there. I strongly recommend. How many of you have got a buddy coach or a accountability coach already? All right.
All right.
Excellent. Good for
that's
you guys.
looking better.
And those of
I
you
want
who
to
do
see
not,
all your hands up by the end of today.
those of you who do not have an accountability coach from this room yet, well, you only have a few hours left, and I strongly recommend you do not leave this room without one. Not because you can't go to the toilet or anything like that, just because it will be of great value for you to do that. I cannot emphasize or overemphasize how much more likely you are to succeed when you are accountable to another person. Now, Joe and I, of course, will be having our regular calls. I think in around mid-May, we'll start with the first series to give you some time to actually hit the ground running and have questions to ask us. But, you know, talking to us once a month or so is nothing like talking to someone regularly on a weekly basis or sometimes even a daily basis. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, here we go. So we have the research on that, which is the likelihood of a person completing a goal. So simply come up with an idea. 10% of people who have an idea actually complete it. consciously decide to do it. 25% of people actually get it done. Decide when they will do it, so they give themselves a deadline. That means 40% of people now achieve that particular goal. If you have a little plan in place, kind of like you have here, on how to do it, about half the people achieve that goal. If they commit to someone else, 65% of people complete that goal. So, would you like to be in the 10% or the 65% region, folks? Right? So, unless you want to diminish your chances of success, if you do not have an accountability coach yet, during the next break, grab any random person and say, well, hopefully not someone's in the room, because if you drop a Bahamian wage, like, will you be my coach? Huh? Yeah, man, I'll be your coach.
I think it's more like, yeah, baby.
Yeah. But this is absolutely nothing to do with us in terms of whether you do or not or don't get an accountability coach. Will change my life not one iota, except we'll have few of you being successful, and it means a lot to me that you guys are successful. It means a lot to Joe that you guys are successful.
Very much.
So please, do not think that I am lecturing or preaching or anything like that. I am trying to put as many things in place for you before you leave here tonight to make sure you're successful. Does that make sense to everyone? So please get an accountability coach. And then, this goes back to this, what we're doing here is practice your phone process with them and let them give you feedback on how it felt being the client. And then improve your phone process. You need to be able to do this phone process so that you do it in your sleep, right?
Yep.
I used to have this thing taped right next to my telephone, just in case I had a little brain moment and I would blank out. So it would be there, so I could go right back on track without anyone ever noticing.
Here's another secret tip that isn't in the resources, but I think would be valuable for you guys.
That's why it's secret.
Yeah, right. Test your phone script on your personal network, the people that
Yes.
already know and love you. Test it.
Oh.
And I've done this before, and I've actually gotten clients based on this. That
I've
I'll
done
say,
exactly that
Can you
too."
pretend that you're calling me for a weight loss problem? And they have no weight loss issues or anything that they know of yet. And I say, can you just go through this? And I'll do it really on the phone, because it makes it more
Yeah.
real for them and for you. And test it out with them and play with it. And have them give you honest feedback after the whole thing is done. But often when I've tested this out, people are like, well, I actually kind of want that if you wouldn't mind offering that to me.
100%.
And they'll ask you probably for the friends and family discount. And, if you're generous, you can offer it if you wish. But
Or not.
You
Make
know.
it work for it.
if you want to have a successful business, I would highly recommend that you charge them a good rate. Don't just give your friends and family a discount because they ask you.
Right.
Necessarily. If it's your mother, be nice.
Make sure she pays double.
Make sure she pays double.
All those time you had to sit at that table until you had to finish your meal. Now it's payback time.
I don't recommend working with family, but
No.
that's one thing. But your personal network, especially like your friends or some of the like friends of friends, they'll love to help you test this out, especially if they're successful in business, because they'll remember a time when they were there and just remind them like, hey, remember when you started out in business and this was a little bit hard? I'd like to test this out so I can be really good at it, just like you. And they'll be like, oh yeah, just like me, ha ha. And then you test it out, and a bunch of them will most likely become your clients. It's pretty fun.
I found this out by accident when I was starting to my executive coaching work, and I thought, I need to have a conversion process like this. That's when I first got into the whole idea of a phone process. I remember I had a friend of mine who's an executive, because I used to be a lawyer, so I had a lot of contacts in the city. And so I called a few of them up and said, look, do you mind if I did this? One of them ended up signing up for a 6-month coaching contract worth $10,000. So I went, wow.
How's that?
Pretty happy with
How's
that.
that for a practice phone call, right?
And honestly, I had no intention to do that. I literally
Yeah.
just wanted to get good and smooth at this process, right? So this is definitely worth your while doing.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, you may actually find that some of your personal network suddenly understands what you do better and knows who to send to you,
Yep.
right? Do you see the value of this?
Sort of a mindset thing, practice
Yeah.
where it's safe to practice. These people love and know you. They're going to give you honest feedback.
Yeah, and if you make a mistake, they
You know,
won't,
if you
they
make a
won't
mistake, they
jump down
won't.
your throat for it. And if
Yeah.
they do jump down your throat, then fire your clients. You are no longer my mother. I have no mother. So the final
Again?
one, Do I have mother issues? I don't know.
Are you a teenager again?
Yeah. So the last sheet on page 104, there's a checklist of what I go through when looking for a new VPA, a virtual personal assistant. I have a lot of stuff I need doing, so I need a virtual personal assistant. So this is the thing we go through both in the selection process and the training process. It's just a very simple thing. I'm by no means the world's best expert in hiring and training VPAs. Joe knows much better people than I do in that sense. But I do need them, and I have gone through a few of them, and these are my experiences there, so you're welcome to play with them as you wish to. So far, so good, everyone? Yes. So moving on to the next section, that's the resources 3.1. These are all the advertising resources. So all the other, the previous tab, all the 2.0 resources, these are all to do with lecture demos, referral partners, that whole portion of the game, right? This whole portion of the manual is about advertising, which is basically the King's Highway, right? And there's a lot of stuff in here, so we're just going to go through it. We have some beautiful pictures of Lionel Richie, so we have all the classic classified ads and the mistakes you can make, plus, of course, the great ads that you saw on the screen with Joe. They'll be in here so you can kind of study them again at your leisure. In terms of the copywriting, there's a few interesting things in here which you may or may not want to get into. On page 110, there are a whole bunch of questions you could ask yourself to kind of get more in tune with your client. However, a little word of warning. These questions can be very linear, very logical, very left brain. They're designed so that you get more in touch with your client empathy map. If they get you out of touch with that person, that little face you've glued onto your empathy map, then stop doing these questions. They're there to assist the process, not hinder it, right? Yeah. So don't ask yourself these questions at the expense of the empathy map. They're to enrich it. Does that make sense? Right? So the idea is here that you do not start writing your copies, your advertisements, and so on until you have your emotional connection intact with your ideal client, because how else are you going to speak to that person, right? Easy? Then we have the letter to a friend process. Who enjoyed the letter to a friend process? Anyone? Right? It's pretty easy, it's pretty quick, right? Remember the key on the letter to a friend process is step 11. Step 10 is where it technically finishes, but step 11 is put it away, wait about a week or so, forget about the letter, and reread it with fresh eyes. Not only will you start spotting typos, you'll spot phrases and things that you don't want to be using really. They just came out of the time, and now you can polish them up and improve them, and you can put it together that way. So that's really the simple thing. At the end of that whole process, I have my version of that letter, and remember, there'll be typos in there, there'll be awkward phrases in it, because as I was writing the 10 steps of the letter to a friend, literally as I wrote the step out, I thought I might as well give you an example, and I did not think for a second. I literally went, here's a step, and straight into the example, straight on to the next step. There was no thought, because I wanted to have you see the exact experience you'll be having when you're doing this, right? And hopefully you'll agree that the letter is not the best letter in the world, but is good enough that it'll actually get you clients, just based on that process alone, right? Then on page 121 onwards, Joe's created a whole bunch of really important things for you guys, especially when you come to the polishing phase. 121 to 125 are sample headlines. These are proven ways of making that big, bold promise that just capture attention, right? And it's beautiful because he's giving you it in a template format. You can just plug in your ideas. He's giving you lots of examples of them so you can see them in action. And you just have to...
I have also explained a little bit of the psychology behind them as well.
Exactly. So this is a really, really wonderful... This alone, folks, is probably worth a couple of $100 to you guys. In fact, if you get a few clients out of this, it's worth thousands of dollars, because it's anything that increases your conversion rate, your attention rate, is worth a lot of money, right? Especially, the irony is, the more successful you come, the more valuable a small idea becomes to you, because it leverages so much higher. See how that works, guys? So do use this, especially when you're polishing your letter to a friend. And remember, the number one thing you must always keep in mind is this is a letter to a real person. So if you would not write it to a friend of yours, do not write it. So when you write a bold promise, do not write such a crazy bold promise that they are going to call up your mother and say, is he on crack again? Because, you know, it's so unrealistic. You want to make a bold promise, but it's still within the realms of believability, right? And the templates, again, you'll see that all the examples are actually very believable, but still very exciting, right? Do you understand what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
Then on page 126, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah. No, that was it. This
Oh.
next section on effective bullet writing
Mm-hmm.
is a very left-brained way of really getting. So when I used to be a consultant, we used to do a similar process to this for companies that we would visit, and oftentimes the companies we would say that they would. So that companies usually talk about we do this, we do that.
Yeah.
We would say stop wee-weeing on your clients. Right, so you have to turn the features and stuff that they care about into benefits and vivified benefits for the actual clients that you're going to be seeing. And the process here is much more detailed and in-depth than we went through, what was that, day 3?
Yeah.
And we simplified it for you guys because it was an easier process to go through. But if you really want to sit down and get an exhaustive list of the real vivified benefits, again, you're going to have to get in touch with the emotional connection there. So only do it to the extent that you don't lose that connection. However, this will give you a way where you just open up a spreadsheet in Excel, you type a feature, and then you'll have like a list of 20 or 30 benefits that come from that, and 20 or 30 benefits that come from those, and then 20 or 30 benefits or vivified benefits that come from there. Remember we talked about it was like a feature, and then a why, and then what's in it for me, and then vivify that, what's really, really in it for me. We're talking about, I can use a hammer to build your house, but you really want the house. But you don't really want the house, you want the experience of living in the house. This is a left-brained way of getting a huge list of those things so that you can then figure out, again, that emotional connection, look at that empathy map, and pick out the ones that you really, really like, or that possibly even your clients have kind of told you, I'm living my life this way. And you'll start to get a sense for it, but it's a really nice way
It's a great
of
process
doing
you
that.
have here. The other thing you can do with this list, and it's actually worth going through that for your main niche or niche. I keep forgetting which side of the Atlantic I'm on.
Well, I came up with a new phrase. A niche scratches an itch, right? Because you don't itch all over your body unless you have some real problems. Niche scratches an itch, which will make you rich.
Thank you. See, now we're rapping. Oh, yeah. If I had any kind of musical sense, I might actually turn that into rap. But
Right, yeah. It
trust
also
me,
tells
don't
you
wanna
which
hear
side
that.
of the Atlantic you're on.
Yeah, we might go to Fiverr.com and have someone actually rap that for us. So the other reason that it's very useful to go through that whole process of creating all kinds of bullets you will not use is because these make great drop-ins that you can throw into your campaigns,
Yeah.
right? You can actually feature one of these bullets in a campaign and tell a story about it. You can use it as a theme for it. Or if you're stumped, just get 3 or 4 of these, whack them in there. By the way, here's some cool news for you. Did you know that weight loss for pregnant teens is, here's 3 facts you probably didn't know. Boom, 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 boom. Have a nice day, right? So this is great filler, which is both valuable, exciting, and so you have your archive you can just dive into if you need something quickly to talk about. Make sense, guys? You know anything to add?
No, I just had
The flash of the teenage mothers, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. All right, next we have the copywriting checklist. What this is this is the left brain version of the letter to a friend. So for those of you who want to look at the structure of a sales letter in a more structural sort of way, rather than the intuitive way that the letter to a friend does, that's what this is all about. And of course, we've got the result here with fasteffectivecopy.com. If you really want to master this as a field, which is a fascinating field, David is really the best person to go to. All the stuff's in here, so you can have a look at that at your leisure when you want to. Okay? All good so far?
Yep.
Next, we come on to the ad mechanics. So once again, here we have gone to town for you guys. We've paid a professional copywriter to write 3 classified ads. You've seen some of them on the screen, but we have 30 of them here. 3 for the top 10 hypnosis themes, shall we say, that in our experience are out there. Now, these top 10 themes aren't the only top 10 themes. There's more than 10 in the top 10, if you see what I mean. But they're pretty much up there. You can switch these things around a bit. Can you put these ads straight into the paper? Of course you could. My recommendation, however, is you study these samples here for their structure, for the language, for how they make you feel, and use them as templates to create your own versions. Does that make sense, guys? Right? Really, there's some really ingenious frames, some ingenious language, some ingenious psychology that's gone into these. You have now that little, 5-point checklist for writing adverts. Combined with this as a template, you should basically be good to go once you get to the point where you do want to advertise. And remember, this is much later in the sequence, right? Any questions? No?
No, good.
Then we come on to things like all the screenshots we put on the screen, Craigslist, Meetup.com, Groupon, Thumbtack, all these things, just to get a sense of these are what the websites look like, so when you actually get to them, you won't feel totally overloaded by them. A quick question over here.
So when you're advertising for a campaign.
So the question is, when you're advertising for a campaign. I'll give you two answers to that. Number one, yes. Number two, it's your business, do what you want, right? At this point in our training, it's going to be more and more your responsibility. We can present you on the one side, what is the model, which is recommended, and on the other side, I know for a fact you're going to have to break ranks with a model at some point.
Yep.
Because you have to adapt to your environment, your clientele, your mindset, and so on. So these are recommendations, folks. If you're in doubt, run with the recommendations. Otherwise, if you want to tinker with something, go ahead and tinker with it. If you break it, go back to the model as your starting point and go from there. Does that help you guys?
Yes.
Quickly?
Have we got anything on either sample or templates or whatever for reports? We talked about it along.
Do we have a sample or template for reports? Not really, because that's really just you writing down, your top 10 ideas.
Sometimes they should, like even how long they should be, 10 pages.
So the question is, sometimes he doesn't know how long they should be. Sometimes they're 10 pages, sometimes they're 50 pages. The reason they vary in length is because everyone writes whatever they want into them, right? Just go back. Do you want to have a simple template for writing a report like this? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, number one, think of your lecture demo. There'll be less demos because you can't actually write group experiences up, but you can give them little tips and tricks, right? Number two, really think about your empathy map, your ideal client. Think about their problem. And just like you did with your letter to a friend, this is like the middle portion of the letter to a friend when you're solving their problem, but in more detail. So this is the middle portion when you're saying, here's how to solve your problem, but in more detail. Sure, you'll start off, in fact, you can actually use that same format, but you'll spend more time in that middle portion solving the problem than in the beginning. You might just do a little bit of activating the problem to remind them about it. But it's a very similar sort of process. Just your focus is going to expand on, here are some tips, here's some tricks, here's some solutions, here's some proof, here's a journal article, here's a newspaper article, and so on.
Yeah.
Does that help? And the reason, by the way, they're between 3 and 30 pages and so on, is because everyone puts in whatever they feel like, whatever they think is right for that person to hear at that point.
Presumably the report you do is designed to act as a precursor or a preface for whatever the end of the campaign.
So then he's asking, I presume the report is a pre-frame to prepare people for the end of the campaign to buy the hypnotherapy. Of course, it's all one theme. The theme is always, this is what the hypnotherapy program will do for you. And inside the report, you're not selling the hypnotherapy program, by the way. That would be a bad report. You're giving real value. You're giving them tips and tricks that if, let's say it's weight loss, if they follow these tips and tricks, if they just followed one of these tips and tricks, their ability to lose weight will suddenly improve, right?
Yep.
So it's got to be a real genuine thing, not like, oh, and by the way, when you come and see me, here's a little tip that you'll find out about, the one secret. That's what you do in a sales letter, right? To create the hook. In the report, you give the answer to that, okay?
Yeah. I look at it as giving your potential customers enough information so that they're educated to be able to ask the really intelligent questions that you want them to be asking.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Go ahead, Arthur.
So that in a report, there's no call to action. You're just providing information to them.
Some people put a call to action on the back end of it. Some people don't. I don't feel strongly either way. It really depends on your audience and how you set yourself up. I don't know if you have a particular preference. I don't really care.
Well, my first answer would be to test, and then the second one would be
Test again.
Think about test again, and then the third answer would be to test again, and then the fourth answer would be the strategy behind it is I would look at where it's going to be fitting into your campaign, and
Right.
decide what the next step you want them to do is,
Right.
because your customers will not take that next step unless you tell them. maybe the free report doesn't have a call to action. That's okay, but maybe you know that there's another email coming
Right.
that'll have a move on to the next step. That's totally fine. And again,
And your free report
Tests.
actually can have a hidden call to action along the lines of, I hope you enjoyed this free report. I'm going to be sending you some updates to this report, so check out your email, because you don't want to miss some of the cutting edge stuff
Right.
that's been coming across.
that's a clear
a
call to
soft-
action. That's a
yeah.
wait.
Yeah, wait and open your email,
Yep.
right? And that's actually a call to action, but it's a disguised one, because it's not, people don't recognize it as a, oh, I've got to do something now. They think like, oh, I don't want to miss something now.
Yeah.
Does that help? Can we pass that back to Jules?
Because I'm a junkie for this,
Okay.
I've collected many of these reports, some from Igor's students, some
Yep.
from others, and compared them. But one thing I noticed is that I tend to print them up in my office, and something as simple as the website at the bottom
yeah.
back
Yes.
of the report
Yep.
could lead to other leads as people see the report, or I sometimes hand it out if it's
Give it to a friend
applicable
and
to
so on.
others.
Yep.
Yep.
And then because they didn't get it from the source, there's still a chance that they can become part of the most. So I do suggest
Completely.
that even if there's not a call to action, that there's some branding back to a place where there
100%.
could be a call to action.
Yep. On one I just did, I do some corporate speaking events, and I sent a email to a HR person, and I said, you can forward this around the company. And it was a really great, for the corporate environment, a report is called a white paper. It's the same thing. It's use the language of your clients, guys. It will help you get further into their world, and they will feel like you know what you're talking about. But I sent them an email. It was a PDF, and on every single page was my URL that was specific to that company. Because I mean, you can get very sophisticated with these things, but my URL for that company, and I could actually track the metrics of how many people were visiting, and I could see like you'd see. The HR person clearly sent it out to like department heads, and then the department heads like
Spreads out.
sort of spread it out, and it kind of exploded into there. And I made sure to put my URL on every bottom of every page, and I got a bunch of people from that company looking at it, interested in responding. And now I have an in, instead of just with one HR person, I have an in with a lot of really influential people inside the company who then emailed me back. One of the simplest calls to action is email me back and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And that's huge market research. That's building a relationship. That's
And it's
interest.
all nice and informal.
You know, yeah, just
No heavy
hey,
sale.
if you really like this, send me your thoughts. It can be something as simple as that. Use the language that they would normally use. You know, let's touch base a little bit later, kind of thing, for a more corporate environment. That kind of stuff. You know what I'm talking about. And people will forward that stuff around. But yeah, that's a really great tip. Is put your information on. I prefer on every page, because then if they print it out, then it's just there. It's discreet. It doesn't have to be your stuff and then a tiny bit of content like in the middle of the page, right? But it's a useful tactic. Yeah. Thanks.
So we're clear on that one? So the next section here is, starting at page 159, is all about the systems and the strategies for doing your marketing, right? Your advertising stuff.
Right. So
we've
for
got-
like the ad tracking stuff, this is a simplified version of. I mean, we could spend a 2-week seminar just on tracking advertising. So what I did was I wanted to just bring this down to a nice simple level where you guys could start to understand the metrics behind what your advertising is actually doing for you, and start to think about in the planning stages when you have some, especially when you have some cash, to go, oh, well, what's the circulation of like this newspaper, and how much conversion am I getting from there? And if those terms don't necessarily make sense right now, they will when you read that.
It's only 2 little pages, so it's actually quite simple to go through. But really, if you're not tracking what's going on, if you have no idea what's going on,
Yeah.
right? You might be wasting your money.
And remember how we talked about, when you get to a certain level, you will outgrow a simple spreadsheet as an ad tracking system for yourself. If you're only wanting one ad, a simple spreadsheet's going to do it for you. But if you want more information, if you're running multiple ads, you might want to invest in some software and some things to do that. My system is a mishmash of programs and other things that I've personally written, so I can't necessarily recommend it. It's a lot of duct tape and chewing gum and everything
Duct
else.
tape rocks.
But that's really honestly how your business grows, is that you'll put together and cobble together outsourced systems or your own custom stuff, or you'll pay for things and do it, and the systems will grow with you, and sometimes you'll have to throw them away and start over. But this will be a simple system that you guys can just look at and go, oh, okay, I understand now
It's
the
the-
principles behind it and where I'm headed.
It's the tracking equivalent of that little accounting system we talked about, right? It's
Yeah.
great to start with, but it's not gonna.
Don't stick with it
it'll
forever.
break at some point, right?
Yeah.
And when it does, just replace with something better. You'll be more sophisticated by then. After that, we've got the marketing video checklist, page 161 onwards. Now, this is very interesting because the internet is all going towards video now that the bandwidths are increasing and so on. And really, video, hands down, has the highest conversion and response rates, bar none, right? So what we've done here is we showed you, we've used some of our experiences and gone through a couple of different kinds of videos you can do for a squeeze page, for your main page, sales page, for a thank you video after they've bought something, just to kind of give you a sense of where you can start with this, how I think about it when we create videos, right? It's real simple. You can be on the videos, those are great, because they'll see a person there, but don't be on a video
Oh, deer in headlights.
talking, welcome to my video.
Yeah.
I really want to thank you for being here. You see where I'm going with this? If you have any shyness about being on video, here's a couple of tips I would recommend. Number one, start with just audio. Just use your voice, and then just throw on the words on the screen. It's relatively easy to do.
Yeah.
So they read the words or see pictures, other pictures, and hear your voice, right? They at least get some contact to your voice at that point. A lot of our videos are done that way just because they're quick and easy to do. Then, in the same time, to get yourself used to video, start taping everything, right?
Yeah.
Whilst you're recording your voice, even if it looks horrible, have your video camera facing you, you'll forget about the camera so soon. Honestly, half the time when I'm up here teaching and training, I have no idea there's a camera in the back of the room,
Yeah.
right? I just forget.
I forget too.
Yeah. Where am I?
Something I use, because I used to have just sort of a lot of people have this, is just kind of when a camera's on, that you have like a little bit of an aversion of like staring directly into the camera. Hi guys. And what I did was, and I'm sure if any of you in the room don't know how to do this, but there are plenty of hypnotherapists in the room that can help you. I hypnotized myself to, when I saw that camera, I just lit up. And every time now I look at the camera, I still do it. Every time I look at the camera, it's just,
You
it's
have a lucky
something
chance.
that
Just
can-
tape a
that can
little
do
wave
that.
in front of the camera. It's like, yay!
Yeah, so that's just like a secret tip that I used, was I just hypnotized myself to like looking at the camera instead
Yeah.
of being kind of, I'm not sure if I'm gonna like what this does. Yeah, see, here I am, you're holding up a camera. Thank you. It doesn't necessarily work for
for videos.
photo cameras, but it works for the video cameras.
So here's the thing, folks. Again, the reason you would probably feel inhibited by a camera is because you've forgotten who your client is.
Yeah.
You're not talking at a little machine. You're not talking at this faceless monster that is amorphous. You're only talking to one specific person. That's your ideal client. As soon as you have that heartfelt connection again, really, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I know newscasters who actually put a Polaroid of like their wife or their family or
That's nice.
something right underneath the lens of the camera, so the camera can't see it, but they can, and it's like they're talking to that person. And especially at like a distance like this, the camera can actually tell that you're looking slightly below it at the picture, and you can actually have a nice big picture so you can actually see their face too. It'd be giant head. But it's kind of one of those secret tricks of television that I've seen people do, and they really love it. So, just experiment, play with it,
Yeah.
be creative, have some fun.
Don't let it intimidate you, because it's just a tool.
Yeah.
It has no consciousness. It won't judge you, right? And the beauty about cameras is, if you don't like it, you can always redo it, right? You have absolute control. So let's move on to the next section, which is all the basically how to replicate yourself stuff, right? This is all the stuff we taught yesterday.
This is
So-
my favorite stuff.
This is my favorite stuff too, because this is the bit where you break through the ceiling. If you do everything up to this point, you could actually work the system and probably get close to, if not actually exceed, a six-figure income, but you'll be working hard. As soon as you get to this section here, that six-figure ceiling is, number one, a lot easier to reach, and number two, a lot easier to transcend. This is actually, you can actually take you way, 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 way beyond the six-figure ceiling, But of course, in terms of the machine we've built here, we're aiming to just go for a decent 5-figure income. Those of you who want to work it hard can get a high 5-figure income or a 6-figure income. And then beyond that, you know, it'll still take you there, and the principles have to just become a little more sophisticated. That's all.
And just for the lawyers, results do vary.
Yes, they do. But they go up as well as down. So very quickly, we've got some lists in terms of ideas for hypnosis products. You guys came up with loads of them. It shouldn't be difficult for you to come up with ideas. Then we've got the recording equipment we're going through again. This is the stuff that I use. I'll show you the edit roll, the microphone, and so on. And I've given you the names of these things, so you can just put them in a Google search or Amazon. I actually have bought most of my stuff off Amazon, so except my phone, of course. So it's all, you know, pretty available there. And I've given you some ideas in terms of if you're using your iPhone for video or for audio, some ideas about how I use that too. Then we've given you some ideas in terms of different methods that you can use for creating hypnosis CDs, right? These aren't the only ones. These are just starting points. If you like them, great. If you go to a better process, by all means, knock yourself out, right? This is just to get you started, right? Then we go into audio tools. The first one's called GarageBand, particularly useful for those of you who've got Macs. I'm not sure if it's available on a PC. No. I don't think it is. No. It's a great little audio tool. It's quite intuitive. I have a Mac. I've used GarageBand, but I actually prefer Audacity. But it's there, so it's simple, and a lot of people love this one. Yeah. Why do I prefer Audacity? Several reasons. Number one, the Mac one will automatically start filtering things and doing things for you. I like my audio to be as clean as possible. Number two, the Mac automatically cuts off at 74 minutes, which is basically the length of a CD. So if you want to create an MP3 that's longer than a CD, it's very frustrating. And
actually, that limit's gone. So
is it gone now? Is
yeah,
it?
You just haven't used the software in a while.
No, I haven't, because I got fed up with it. I said, you know what? If you tell me how long I can do it, screw you, buddy. I have Audacity. It's my friend. It lets me stay there and talk to him as long as I want. But yeah, it's a minor thing. It really doesn't matter, guys. Play with the tools, and you decide yourself. You may have a completely different sound editor you enjoy. This is just a starting point. The reason I like Audacity also for you guys is just because it's free. If you have a Mac, GarageBand is usually free anyways. But Audacity, you can download free. We've shown you how to use it. It's real simple. And the process of editing, really, across platforms, will be 90% identical. The same buttons will look pretty similar, and they'll do similar things. So once you know one tool, it gets a lot easier to think yourself into the others.
And use the tool that you like.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, there's these Audacity as well. Audacity is more of the simpler ones, but there are other tools like Ableton Live, you know, Pro Tools. I mean, there are so many audio engineering tools and video editing tools out there. Use one, at first, use one that's simple, because you won't need all the main features. I mean, think about, like, most of you guys use like Microsoft Word, right? Do you use all the features in Microsoft Word? Most likely not.
A tenth of them.
Well, like I've actually gone away from Word other than having to lay out stuff. I actually will just use a simple text editor for most of my writing needs. I just don't need all the crazy features. And when I do, I'll go explore them and learn them and figure out how to use them. But I say the same thing with audio and video stuff. Use something that you're comfortable with, that you like, and it'll usually be able to stick with you for a long time. And if and when you have to grow with a new tool, you'll be ready for it then. Don't prematurely optimize your tools.
Easy? Yeah. So again, what we're giving you here are starting tools you can hit the ground running with, and then really you'll evolve as you go along. Everything in here you should grow beyond at some point, right? The next section is the next section, which is skip straight to 4.2. Remember we talked about group hypnosis, not group hypnosis, converting hypnotherapy session into a hypnotherapy program. Because really the way to do that is real simple. You just talk to the client and they'll pretty much tell you what it is. We don't have any notes in there because there's no process there. You just talk to them and you pull it out of that. So hence the resources skipped from 4.1 to 4.3, because 4.2 was that middle section in between, right?
Just watch the video.
Watch the video. You'll like it.
Video.
It was fun. And Glenn, he's going to pay us $3,000 for it. That's nice. So we'll go straight to the seminars, which is another way of replicating yourself, or at least reaching more people at the same time. And in here, we've got all the things I promised you yesterday, the seminar dates checklist, which is your dates and days of the weeks, the ones that are optimized for your audience. I'll give you the checklist that we use for our seminars in terms of the preparation, the day before, the day of, and then so on. And I even got some, and even those little notes we had in there in terms of some of the things you can put in to spice up your presentations, like humor and sincerity and that sort of stuff. It's all in there. Then we get into the whole section of seating arrangements. Joe's very kindly gone through the trouble to actually draw little diagrams of the different classic style of seating arrangements like you have here, and listing some of the pros and cons of them, especially when you get to the U-shaped one. The pro is, if you hate people, it's a good one to use, right? Let's not spend any time on that one because you have the photos and you have the diagrams there. You can look that up in your own time. The next one, this is important. This is the final resource there, 4.4, group classes. Did anyone enjoy the group hypnosis session we did yesterday? Right? Wasn't that something?
I enjoyed
Powerful
doing
process?
it.
I know, so did I, right? So in this section here, I've given you the entire process. This is something I've been sitting on for the last 2 years because I was actually going to turn this into a hypnotic coaching program. So you guys have got the head start on it because you basically get the entire thing in summary format. It's a great process. Personally, you could make a living doing just this.
Yeah.
You can make a great living doing just this. You can do this online, in other words, through Skype and stuff like that. It'll be it won't be quite as powerful, but it'll still be pretty powerful. Physically present, you have no idea how far you can take people and how much you can do with it. And the beauty of this process, by the way, guys, is those of you who are more junior in your journey of hypnosis, if you're not quite ready to do hypnotherapy, to actually get a specific result yet, this allows you to use the same skill set that you're developing in a less demanding environment. Yes, you still have to have the interaction. Yes, you still have to be able to reframe people. Yes, you have to watch out for people having a negative experience and then maybe helping them through it, maybe even coming and having a chat to them in the middle of the session if they seem to be going some dark place and then pulling them out of it. So you're still paying attention to people. But think about it. It's kind of like doing therapy light, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's your training wheels to do the bigger work where you're doing it one-to-one and more stuff comes out, right? So I think it's a tremendous place. This is what I wish I'd had when I started because it takes a lot of pressure off you while still getting income and a lot of practice as well. Plus, of course, if you're already more experienced, this is basically free money, right? It requires not much time. It's a really good process. For you as a therapist, if you're doing this, what I did, and you'll probably see it on the camera actually, is as soon as you guys were off in the wonderful place, I joined you, right? Every now and again, I'll open my eyes, check around, make sure everyone's okay, and I'll go right back into it. So it's a great way for you to decompress your own mind after a busy day too, right? So I think it's a wonderful process. I hope you guys enjoyed it too.
And
right?
something I just remembered is that I've actually been to a training organization that uses this, a similar process now that I have the nice structure. And they use no hypnosis at all. So it doesn't mean you have to use hypnosis, but they use the same structure to go through, and they run like 10-week group classes. And I've gotten great benefits out of the format. It doesn't necessarily mean the content in that middle portion. If you have the hypnotic skills, yeah, it's going to make it that much more powerful. But don't think that you have to have those skills right away or that you can't develop them later.
Yeah, and
because
let's put it this way.
when I was thinking about it, I get a lot of benefit out of that.
Right. This course is optimized for hypnotherapists and for coaches, right? The content will still work for other businesses, but it's not optimized for them. You need to tweak the principles to fit, other things if that's what you're interested in. But, the group sessions work just well for coaching as it does for hypnotherapy. It's just the bit you put in the middle. Once you put the parameters in place, you could have a yoga class there, right? You could have what's it called? That healing art, or therapeutic art class in there, right? Yeah. So whatever fits your clientele and your processes, you can fit that in the middle of that process.
Yeah, we have another one of the trainers, who's actually the guy you did a radio interview with. He has a process that he does. He works with kids, and one of the things he does is, I named it for him, but he calls it paper airplane therapy.
All right.
And he'll literally sit with a kid with a particular problem, whatever it happens to be, and they'll make a paper airplane together, and they'll be talking about the kid's problem. And just like a dynamic mental imagery induction, for those of you who know what that is, basically just take their problem, and they literally sort of or figuratively, put it into the paper
Project onto the
airplane,
airplane.
and they throw it out the window. And he says that really works with kids. And he does a
Except when he hits a
several-week
policeman in the eye.
process. Yeah, right. You know, then you have another paper airplane to make, right?
Can't see me.
Or bring the policeman in and have him make a paper airplane.
Right.
You know, but be creative with all this stuff, guys.
Yeah.
Just have fun with it.
Now, the reason why we've included, why I designed the group process like this for you, is because a lot of people think about asking things like, well, you know, how do I come up with content? It's okay for the lecture demo because I know what my client is now, and you only have to do really master one lecture demo at a time, right? So how do I come up with all this content? The beauty of the group process is it requires no content. They come up with their goal.
Yeah.
They sign up for it. Each week it'll be different because they'll be different. And even if you run the same induction, provided you leave that processing space in the middle, and you throw in some ideas around whatever the group, you know, committed to for that particular session, it's already a new process. Do you see how that works, guys? So it really frees your time up. You don't have to prepare much for it. You just show up, and you do it, and you have fun, and they'll love you for it.
And to that point, that training company I was talking about that does no hypnosis, but does one of their main things is those group classes. I know that they have a bunch of offices and stuff worldwide. They make over $100 million a year doing
Right.
just that. You
So,
know,
guys-
there's multiple trainers obviously doing this around the world. So, you know, your results will vary. You may not get to $100 million
We're
this
giving
year.
away a lot of stuff here, folks.
But that's one of their. All they do is seminars. They do several-day seminars and these group classes, and that's it. And they're a $100 million company.
Just based on two of the items we already
It's
taught you
two of the ideas that we have here.
guys, right? So it doesn't matter who they are, guys.
Doesn't matter who they are.
What the point here is that the stuff that you have here is more than enough to be able to put you into a totally different category when it comes to your business. Do you guys kind of sense of that now? Do you guys get a feel of it? Right? Now, the other thing I'm going to do before we have a quick break is this is the manual in physical form that we'll be sending as a PDF. There's a lot of content in here, right? Does anyone here feel overloaded, overwhelmed by it, or does it all kind of make sense? Right? Now, you're not that you do the whole thing at once. I'm not asking about that. If you look at each individual item, is it an item you can understand and master? Yes? Yes. So really, you have mastered a business at this point. Sure, there's an implementation phase where you have to go through each bit by bit, and you know it'll fall apart again, you won't understand again, and suddenly it'll make sense again. That's part of the learning phase and acquiring phase. We can't do that for you unless we spend the next 6 months working one-on-one and so on, but that's what really the personal coaching stuff is about. See Joe if he still has any slots open for that sort of thing, if that's what you want. But otherwise, you have everything you need. In the DVDs, we'll give you the step-by-step process and experiences. The manual will be your reference guide. Actually, it's not your manual, this is your resource guide. Will be your reference guide to pull out letters, to pull out little sample things. It's just really, we have to work our socks off to make this as full and detailed as it can be to make you successful, guys. Right? Thank you.
You're welcome.
So on that happy note, why don't we have a quick 15-minute break, freshen up a little bit, we'll come back and we'll put the journey together into one big thing.